You have never been kinder, and they have never resented you more quietly. This is why they quietly resent you. You rose. Jung names the inch you cannot feel and the cold under it. By the end, you will know what they feel and how to set it down. Because you walk in open and warm, and something in the room tightens before you have said a word. You did nothing anyone could point to. You simply arrived at your full height, and your height asked something of everyone still standing on the floor. You were told your goodness was the gift. Jung says your goodness also casts a shadow, and it falls on the people closest to you. Before this ends, you will know what the quiet actually reads, why the flattering story keeps you stuck, and the one move that lets the room breathe again. What they feel is the height your growth built, and the cold it gives off from above. Start with the thing you can feel and cannot prove. It is not a fight. No one raised a voice. You were not accused of anything you could answer. It is smaller and colder than a fight, a tone that used to be warm and now runs even. A smile that arrives a half second after it should. The subject changed gently the moment you began to speak. You go home and turn it over and find nothing you could name in a court, and that is exactly what keeps it sitting in your chest for hours. This quiet resentment behaves nothing like open hostility. Open hostility is loud. It picks a fight, slams a door, tells you to your face that you have changed. You can meet that. You can answer it, defend yourself, or walk away clean. The quiet kind gives you nothing to hold. There is no accusation, so there is no defense. There is only the certainty you would deny out loud, that something about you has begun to cost the people near you something. You have been handed one explanation, and you have probably reached for it because it is warm and it lets you off. They are threatened by your growth. They cannot stand what you reflect, and it was never about you. Hold that thought. We will give it its full due because part of it is true, but one thing is worth catching first. If it were only that, it would be loud. Envy that is pure, resentment a person invented on their own, tends to announce itself in the end. It leaks as a dig, a sharpness, an open snub. The resentment that stays quiet, that never quite surfaces, that both of you could deny with a straight face, is quiet for a reason. It stays quiet because part of what it feels is accurate, and accurate things are hard to say out loud without sounding cruel. So the person swallows it. It comes back sideways, as a coolness they do not understand in themselves. This whole descent turns on one small thing. You walk into rooms and without deciding to, you rise. A coin's width off the floor. Too small to see and impossible not to feel. From up there you feel perfectly level, because you measure everything from your own feet. That is the invisible inch. And the strangest part is the timing. You are resented most, and most quietly, in the very season you finally became kind. But before you look down at your own shoes, the story that keeps them off the ground deserves a fair hearing. Some of what you feel in that room really is theirs. Jung has a precise name for the part that is. The flattering version gets one thing right, and it gets it right because it is Jung. When you carry a quality another person has buried in themselves, your presence can pull it up out of them against their will. Jung calls this projection. The parts of ourselves we cannot hold. We meet in someone else, as though they lived out there in the world and never in us. Much of what a person projects is what they are ashamed of. Jung sees further than that. People also bury their gold, the courage they never spent, the discipline they let go, the honesty they decided cost too much, the self they might have become and quietly set down. That buried potential does not vanish. It waits, and when someone walks in who is visibly living it, the gold stirs in the onlooker, and it aches, because it is proof of a road not taken. This is why resentment runs toward the person doing better, not the one doing worse. That reading is mine, and not something to put in Jung's mouth, but it follows the mechanism cleanly. Think of the colleague who finished what they started, or the relative who at last changed. Their existence asks a question the onlooker cannot answer, and an unanswerable question curdles fast into a grievance, and it gathers where the comparison is closest. A stranger who does better costs you nothing, because you were never running the same race. A sibling, a friend, the person who started out beside you, that success lands in a different place entirely. It measures the distance you did not travel. So the buried gold stirs hardest in the people who share your ground, the ones who once stood level with you and remember it. Envy needs proximity. It does not travel far, and it aims at whoever it can still reach. So yes, when you feel the room cool, some of it is exactly this. It is their gold, buried, catching light off you. It is not your fault, and you cannot heal a wound that lives inside someone else. If this video stopped here, you would feel lighter, and you would have learned something true. That version does something quiet though, and it is worth seeing. It hands you a verdict that asks nothing of you. Every cold shoulder becomes their shadow. Every distance becomes their unlived life. You end up, in every case, in the right, and the other person, the whole of the problem. A story that clears you every single time, without one exception, has stopped explaining your life and started guarding you from it. Jung does not do comfort. His whole method turns the other way, toward withdrawing the projection and hunting for the part of the thing that is yours. He is blunt that this takes real moral effort, and that it is far easier to leave the fault entirely in the other person and call the matter closed. So let us do the harder thing. Grant that some of the resentment is theirs. Then look at what the flattering reed forbids you to see. They are reacting to their own buried gold, yes. They are also reacting to something you are doing in the room right now that you cannot see yourself doing. Therefore, the honest question stops being what is wrong with them. It becomes what you are standing on. And to see that, you have to look down at your own feet. You built a self to walk through the world in, and you built it well. Jung calls it the persona, from the Latin word for the mask an actor wore on stage. The persona is honest enough. It is the face you turn outward. And for most of your life, yours was a struggling face, reactive, over-explaining, easily wounded. Then you did the work, and you changed the mask. The new one is calm, patient, kind, above the noise. A good persona does something you are never warned about. It gathers altitude. Every time you took the high road and someone saw you take it, you rose a little. Every time you were the bigger person and it registered, you rose. Every hour of work you did on yourself becomes, without your consent, a small credit you carry into every room. A quiet ledger of having climbed out of the reactions everyone else is still tangled in. You do not present it. You do not have to. It sits in your posture, your evenness, the soft patience in your voice when someone else loses theirs. You became the calm one. And calm, worn as an identity, stops being weather. It becomes a position, and a position is higher ground. This is the inch. You stand a coin's width off the floor, and from up there you feel level, because you take every measurement from your own souls. Everyone else is on the boards. To meet your eyes, to talk to you, to stand near you, they tilt their necks up by a single degree they never agreed to. They cannot see the inch. They feel the tilt. And a person who has to look up, even slightly, even at someone they love, does not feel warmth. They feel small. Then they resent being made to feel small. Then they feel ashamed of the resentment because you have done nothing they can point to. So it goes quiet and cold, and it waits. Jung sees the engine under this, and it is the hardest line to accept about your own goodness. Where goodness is displayed, power is moving beneath it. He puts it without mercy. Where love reigns, there is no will to power. And where the will to power is paramount, love is lacking. The one is but the shadow of the other. The line lands hard because it is true of the best in us. Virtue that is shown is doing two jobs at once. It is being kind, and it is setting rank. The kindness is real. The rank is also real. And the person on the receiving end feels the second job, even when they came only for the first. The line between being good and displaying it is simply who it is for. Goodness done, where it will never be seen, keeps you on the floor. Goodness performed for the room lifts the shoes, even when you would swear it was sincere. You cannot feel the difference from inside. The room feels it at once. The highest inch of all belongs to the healed. There is no ground higher than moral height, and no rank harder to challenge than the rank of the person who has clearly done the work. Argue with an angry man, and you are equals in the fight. Argue with a serene one, and you become the person who lost composure. The serenity wins before a word is spoken. That is altitude doing its quiet work. You will know the tells in yourself if you look, the gentle correction, the soft, I used to be like that, the patience that lands as condescension, the stillness that keeps a private tally of who kept theirs and who did not. None of this makes the growth fake. It simply built a height while you were not watching. And the higher you climbed, the more quietly the people you love began to resent the ache in their own necks. There is a reason the inch is the hardest height on earth to give up. It is load-bearing. The calm you built runs deeper than decoration. It carried you out of the person you used to be, the one who flinched and argued and lay awake rewriting conversations at 3 a.m. You climbed onto this height to get clear of that water. And it worked. And now the height holds up everything you like about who you became. So of everyone in the room, you are the one who can least afford to look down. The healed do not keep the height out of vanity. They keep it because coming down looks from up here exactly like drowning again. But the inch is only the height. It is not yet the thing they actually feel coming off you. Because a height like that throws a shadow. And the shadow is where your goodness hides, what it will not admit it holds. Jung has a rule about the mask that is almost physical in its certainty. The brighter and more polished the persona, the darker and more disowned the shadow it casts. A person who builds an identity out of being calm and good does not stop having the ugly feelings. They lose the ability to see them. The anger, the pettiness, the hunger for status, the ordinary human meanness, all of it gets pressed out of sight behind the bright face, and none of it leaves. It pools, and it seeps out exactly where you are not looking. What leaks is small and constant, and the room feels every drop of it, the quiet keeping of score, the part of you that clocks who has done the work and who has not, and files them. The gentle total contempt for people still tangled in the reactions you rose above. The patience with a blade folded inside it. The take your time that means I am watching you fail to be as evolved as I am. The faint, awful satisfaction of being misunderstood. Because being misunderstood confirms the height. You would never say any of it. You may not know you feel it, but it comes off the persona like cold off a window pane. And the people near you feel the temperature drop and cannot find the window. Jung sees this in the most ethical people he studies. He describes those who strive for excessive ethics, who try always to think, feel, and act altruistically and ideally, and he tracks where the strain goes. They avenge themselves, he writes, by subtle maliciousness, which naturally does not come into their own consciousness as such. The cruelty of the good stays quiet. It arrives as a temperature, a delay, a look that costs nothing and lands like a verdict. This is the shadow your inch casts, and it falls in one specific place, not on strangers, on the feet of the people standing closest to you, the ones who love you, who came near enough to be in range. Your goodness lights you from above and drops its shade on exactly them. So the flattering story can finally be corrected. The thing they resent is the need underneath the goodness. The quiet requirement that they be a little smaller so that you can be kind. Read that slowly, because it is the whole of this. The kindness is real, and the height is real, and the shadow is real, all at once. The people around you are reading it accurately. They are picking up the one signal you cannot detect in yourself, the low hum of superiority under the serenity. Because it comes wrapped in genuine virtue, they cannot name it without sounding ungrateful. So they go quiet. Their quiet is a measure. It tells you how accurate the thing they caught really was. Jung has a word for what happens when a person forces a whole half of themselves out of sight. The exiled half does not weaken in the dark. It gathers force, and in time, it turns into its own opposite. He calls it enantiodromia, the running of a thing into its contrary. The case of it you least expect is this one. The person most identified with being good becomes the person most quietly capable of cruelty, because they have stopped watching the half of themselves where cruelty lives. The halo and the cold are the same height, read from above and from below. Consider a woman. Call her early 50s. For most of her life, she was the reactive one, quick to hurt, quick to explain herself, and she hated it. So she did the work, real work, years of it, and she came out the other side calm. Her family says she is so together now. Lately, when she is not in the room, they say she has gone a little cold. She does not feel cold. She feels level. She has one habit she is proud of and cannot see: a pause. A trained beat of composure she takes before she answers anyone. A small breath where the old reactive self used to be. She thinks of the pause as wisdom. Everyone around her feels it as being made to wait beneath her while she decides how to be gracious. One afternoon at her sister's kitchen table, her sister says something clumsy and defensive. She feels it rise in her. The gentle correction, the wiser flush, the line that would land soft and leave her half an inch higher. She has said versions of it 100 times. This time she offers it, kind and calm and completely right, and she watches her sister's face close by a fraction neither of them could name. That night she reaches for the comfortable read. Her sister is just threatened, and for once it does not hold because she felt, for one honest second, the small warm glow of being the wiser sister. And she knew her sister felt it too. There was an earlier sign she had filed and forgotten. Her son, grown now, had slowly stopped bringing her the hard things. He took them to his father instead, who only reacts, who has no pause, who says the wrong thing warmly and right away. She had read it as his immaturity. Sitting across from her sister's closed face, she understands it differently. He did not want the wiser parent. He wanted the nearer one, and the near ones cannot do the one thing that would spare them. They cannot leave. A stranger who feels the chill simply drifts off and forgets you by the weekend. A sister, a son, a husband, they are bound to the room so they cannot walk out of range of the shadow. They stay and they cool in place, and the cooling has nowhere to go. So the quiet resentment is almost always the resentment of the people who love you. Distance would have spared them, but nearness keeps them in the shade. That is the exposure. Under it is a strange kind of relief. If part of the coldness is yours, then part of it is finally something you can put down. Therefore, the work is climbing down off the inch, and it asks nothing about being less good. The way down is the one your persona refuses first, because your persona would love nothing more than to be humble, beautifully, visibly, from a coin's width off the floor. The trap is right here, and almost everyone falls into it. The moment you see the inch, the persona offers a solution it is very good at. Perform humility. Be visibly modest. Add self-deprecation to the act. Apologize more. Announce how far you still have to go. It feels like coming down, and it does the reverse. Performed humility is only the inch repainted. A taller height that now includes the virtue of knowing you stand on one. You cannot reach the floor by being impressively low. Jung is blunt about where the descent actually happens, and it is not in the light. One does not become enlightened by imagining figures of light, but by making the darkness conscious. You do not come down by stacking better behavior on top. You come down by turning around and facing the half of yourself the bright mask was built to hide. The scorekeeping, the contempt, the appetite for rank you would swear you do not carry. Not to flog yourself for it, which is only the persona finding a fresh way to feel superior, this time about your own darkness. Simply to know it is there, to let it be conscious. A superiority you can see has already stopped leaking, because the cold hum comes precisely from the part you refuse to look at. This is the move that changes the room, and the room will never announce it. When you stop needing to be above people, they stop having to look up. The neck comes level. The shadow shrinks to the size of your own body. You become someone another person can stand beside on the same boards, and shared ground is the only place warmth grows. Jung's word for owning the disowned half is integration, and it has nothing to do with modesty. He is clear that it begins with acceptance. We cannot change anything until we accept it, he writes. Condemnation does not liberate, it oppresses. You do not have to become a worse person to do this. You let the parts you exiled back through the door, so they stop running the room from behind it. That is the slow work Jung calls individuation, the becoming of a whole self in place of a polished half, and he insists it does not wall you off from other people. Individuation does not shut one out from the world, but gathers the world to oneself. There is one tell for whether it is real. The moment coming down needs to be seen. It is turned back into a way of climbing. The descent that reaches the floor leaves no story to tell. It asks for no credit. If you can feel the wish for someone to notice, that wish is the inch, still under your shoes. The felt practice is smaller than you want it to be. The next time you feel the warm glow of being the wiser one, do not push it away and do not act on it. Let yourself see it. Name it privately, this is the height, and feel how the naming lets the air out of the shoes. Be honest about how that feels, because it will not feel like rising. It feels like losing a small altitude you had come to enjoy. The quiet resentment around you will not thank you and may not even notice. It will simply, over weeks, begin to thaw. The shoes settle. The shadow lies no longer than you are tall, and you will have to choose it again the next day, because the inch does not stay down on its own. Every new room lifts you a little before you have decided anything. Coming down is a small, unglamorous choice you make over and over, most of the time clumsily. It never arrives as one clean conversion you can point back to. The first dozen times, part of you will wait for someone to notice the descent and hand you credit for it. That waiting is the inch climbing back up under you. The floor asks you to come down and expect nothing, and then to do it again tomorrow. But an idea you only understand is still floating a coin's width off the floor. Someone has to set it down. So return to her, the woman in her early 50s who did the real work and came out calm, and lately out of the room a little cold. For years she collected the comfortable read the way everyone does, filing each cooling as someone else's smallness. It kept her a coin's width off the floor, and it was lonely up there, though she called the loneliness peace. Back at her sister's table another afternoon, her sister says something clumsy and defensive again. She feels the pause arrive, the train beat, the wiser line loading up behind it. This time she catches it while it is happening, and she skips the pause. She says the true thing instead of the graceful one. She tells her sister that she gets sharp when she is frightened, and that she was frightened, and that she is sorry. She does not turn it into a lesson or dress it as growth. She just sets an ordinary, unflattering fact on the table between them. Something in her sister's face opens. The words were plain, almost clumsy. What reached her was the floor they were suddenly standing on together. That is the whole of it. No announcement, no breakthrough, no thanks for her humility, because there was nothing to perform. Under the table, her shoes rest flat on the boards. She feels shorter and warmer and slightly exposed, which is what the floor feels like after years of the inch. And now that she is down here, she can finally tell the two apart. Some of the coldness around her really was projection, real envy, someone's buried gold catching light off her, and none of that was ever hers to carry, so she stops trying to. The other part, the inch, the leak, the quiet rank, that part she can set down any afternoon she is willing to be ordinary in front of someone who matters. The freedom is in the sorting. She is not on the hook for every cold shoulder, and she is on the hook for her own height. And knowing which is which ends the guilt and the superiority in the same breath. She sits at the table, unremarkable and at ease, no longer the wisest person in the room, and no longer needing to be. Weeks later, her son calls with something raw, before he has thought it through, in the middle of the feeling instead of after it. He could not tell you why he called her this time and not his father. She does not explain it to him either. She stays on the line while he is a mess and does not fix it and does not take her pause first. Under her own kitchen table, her shoes are flat on the floor. There is no day anyone will circle as the moment the inch went out of her. That quiet is the only proof it did. So carry this out of the room with you. The people who cooled toward you were not all wrong, and they were not all right, and the flattering story that made them the whole problem was the inch talking. You became good. You rose on it without meaning to. The shadow of the height fell on the people who came closest, and they felt it and could not say it, so it went cold and quiet and waited for you to notice your own feet. You can notice them today. The next time you walk into a room warm and open and a little above everyone in it, you can feel the coin's width of air under your shoes, and you can let it out and stand on the boards, ordinary and near instead of admirable and far. No one will announce it. That is the point. The only person who ever has to know the shoes came down is you, because the height only ever looked like the achievement. All along, it was the last thing standing between you and the people you were trying, the whole time, to be good to. Step off the inch and you will not fall. You will finally be at eye level, and you may find that the room, without a word, without anyone knowing why, has begun to warm.
Empaths aren't broken. They're alchemists in progress. The Alchemist's Path gives you drills, Jung-based boundaries, and 3 exclusive chapter videos to turn overwhelm into clarity. By Surreal Mind, 236-page downloadable ebook in stock. Begin now at thesurrealmind.com.